There we go. And I think you can.
Yeah. Import CSV page. Yes.
So I figured that since everyone seems to be doing recipes these days, I would do one. And this one, I think I don't need to tell you, Mauricio, but people who don't know about the migrate system as well as you and I don't know that you need the migrate source CSV module and the migrate source UI module in order to import CSV files. Now, actually, um, and of course, Migrate Plus. Actually, both of these have very recent releases. The 24th or the 27th rather was less than a week ago. That was last Friday.
Yeah.
Um, and that's in part because of the issues that came up while I was testing my recipe. Um, Let me just click through to the release notes. So file validation changed in Drupal 10.2. So that was a bug that made the migrate source UI module unusable on Drupal 11. Um, so I fixed that, and Lucas was good enough to merge my fix and then make a release. And migrate source CSV, the issue there um, is that there used to be no way when uploading a CSV file to refer to the other migrations that use CSV files and migrate source UI. And that's because um, they they didn't know where to find their source CSV. So they actually generated some errors when you tried to instantiate the migration. So you couldn't roll back, you couldn't ask for status, you couldn't do a migration lookup because you couldn't instantiate the migration. So, so this issue lets you specify the source, the path to the CSV file as specifically /dev/null. And if you use that, then it does just a little bit of trickery and tells you that you have a source with 0 rows rather than throwing an error. And that lets rollback work. It lets migration lookup work. Um,
Oh, okay.
if you do a drush migrate status for the for that migration, it'll tell you that you have 0 source rows and you've imported 23. And so the remaining rows are -23. So that's just because that remaining rows column in the report is just generated by subtraction. So that's a little odd, but nonetheless it works. And once you can do a migration lookup, you can have say a user's migration with a little CSV file, and the ID column is Alice, Bob, and Actor. And then you can refer to those users in your node migration and say that Alice should be the owner of node 2 and Bob should be the owner of node 3. And you can also refer to term IDs from your term migration.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually got some improvements in the underlying modules while I was working on this recipe.
That's cool. Thank you.
So I was hoping to get to it over my end of year break, and I didn't. But the another recipe that I'm planning to do is sort of a starter recipe for migrating from a Drupal 7 site.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to have help on that. I, I for starters, the only thing I have in mind is to install all the usual modules. And for me, that would be migrate plus, migrate upgrade, and then for debugging purposes, migrate devel and migrate sandbox. I guess also migrate tools. Am I leaving anything off?
No, not. I mean, those are the base ones. Like if, yeah, I very often uh, use one of the modules that I wrote about the skipping fields because that's something that for some reason I am asked a lot to do. Like either remove whole content types or at least some of the fields. So that has become one of my go-to modules
That's right. Let
in
me open a
Droid.
tab with that module and the tab will remind me of what it is, but I've,
Migrate underscore skip underscore fields. Yep, that one.
okay, I will add that and maybe I'll get to it this weekend.
I mean, this is mostly if you need to do content model changes. So if the scope of your recipe will not include that, but yeah, like when doing custom migrations, that is something that we are asked very often.
Yeah, and sort of ideally, the target audience of the recipe is the ambitious site builder who isn't going to be doing any code.
Mhm,
And neither of these recipes is really aimed at that user. I mean, I guess the recipe for migrating a Drupal 7 site could handle very, very simple sites where you can do it through the UI. Um, but other than those, either one of them, for real use, is going to require people to at least write CSV files. I'm sorry, to at least write YAML files. So they're not ideal from the point of view of the recipes initiative, but
mhm. I helped a little bit at the end of last year with where I think, but because there are many, but I think the one that I worked with was WordPress Migrate, and at the moment it is a wizard that you provide some um, export file from WordPress and provide some configuration, and it migrates into Drupal. No, I guess then it's the other way around. WordPress
WordPress
Migrate.
migrate, yeah.
I know there are at least three of them. So the
There you
one,
go.
yeah,
Pung pung.
Yes, yes. I think he's from the Boston area too, or at
Yes,
least
he is.
was. Yep. Yeah, that's the one I helped a little bit with at the end of last year.
So let's see. So those are a couple of the things I've been working on. Oh, um, and one more thing. I guess I have the link over here for Migrate Plus. This also has a recent release, like maybe the 20th instead of the 27th.
Okay.
No, actually November 20th. But one of one of these issues is one of mine, the array template plugin. Um, so let's see. So here are the examples. You can just specify a template with whatever structure you want. And if the value in this array starts with source colon or dest colon or pipeline colon, then it's interpreted in a sort of magic way, and it's replaced by a source value for the row, a destination value for the row, or whatever value came in through the pipeline. Um,
In the current process pipeline, right? Like in this case, whatever foo would be. So that one would be foo some nested key.
yes.
Mhm. Cool.
And there's a sort of practical example that when you do a migration lookup to find a paragraph, then you can pipe that to this new. Oh, I didn't update. This is a comment, and I didn't update the name of the plugin. It started off being build array, but it's now array template. But you get pipeline colon 0 as the target ID and pipeline colon 1 as the target revision ID. Um, anyway, I think this is something I've wanted for a long time, and you don't need as many pseudo fields. If you can
Mhm.
just pipe the pseudo field in uh, through the process pipeline and then insert it wherever you want using the array template. Um, so that's in. Unfortunately, um, the snippets plugin is still waiting for a review. That's another one. Um,
That's one that lets you reuse like a certain process pipeline.
yes,
And is it exclusively about like a series of process plugin being applied to one element? Or yes, right? That's it's not like shared configuration that you can have multiple destination properties assigned, right?
that's right. And
Mm.
I when shared configuration got in, I wondered, do we still need this? And the answer is yes, because shared configuration sort of ties you to the same source and destination fields, whereas this does not. So if you have a bunch of different text fields and you want to do the same processing on all of them, you can define the process once. So that's still waiting for review.
Will this one allow for dynamic sources? Like you define like a template, but every time that you use it, you define a new source?
Yeah, you just use the um, where is it?
Oh, okay, I see it there. Yes. Okay, okay. Yeah,
Oh, I
pipeline.
guess. Oh, I guess this issue summary needs to be updated. That this is not a comment, and I guess I was calling it the pipeline. Oh no, wait a minute. Here we go. The snippet plugins. So here's the snippet, and then here's where you use the snippet. You just say plugin snippet. You specify which module defines the snippet, the path and the source, and whatever source you want, and whatever destination field you want. You can plug it in. Oh, that's right. All of this down here was the original proposal.
Mhm.
So this up here is the standard example of the snippet plugin.
You mentioned that for debugging you use migrate devel and um,
Sandbox.
sandbox. I think I have used migrate devel. That's the one that gives you like the extra flags to see the you know the source and the destination as bar dumps, basically.
Right.
Yes, yes.
Let's open up one of the screenshots. So you've used that, but you haven't used Migrate Sandbox?
Yes, I mean, this one is, it's been a while for a long time. And I actually covered it in the original migration series, like in 2019, I think. Sandbox, I think I know what it does, but I have never used it.
Oh, Sandbox is fun. Um, yeah, if the pipeline gets complicated, and I want to try inserting the single values plugin or see what I have at some stage in the process pipeline before adding the next plugin, then this is what I use. Oh, I see someone came up with a an icon for it. That's cute. Um, and yeah, you should definitely give it a try.
Is it like if you already have a migration plugin, will it like try to fetch the data at least for some sample data? Or it is all test data that you need to provide?
Yes, it provides an option to use an actual row from an actual migration.
Okay.
So let's see, these screenshots all show the process section, but but yes, it lets you work with your actual source data. And there's a blog post about it, which I haven't looked at. Populate the sandbox. So it does not show the option for populating from an actual migration, but it does let you do that. So I think maybe that's a feature that was added after the initial development and the blog post and the project page were all written. Oh no, here it is. This is the screenshot I want. Um, Populate sandbox from a real migration, give it the ID, optionally give it the source IDs. If you don't, it'll just take the first row. And then you can either just import the data or you can also update the process pipeline. And so I always start by checking off that box so that I get the current process pipeline. And then as I experiment with changing the process pipeline, if I want to import a different row, I'll uncheck this.
And does it actually like calls the destination entity or it goes to like dev null or something like that?
Um, it gives you two options. You can either create a config entity or I forget what the other option is. Um, but it actually creates something,
Okay.
which which I usually don't worry about because I'm always running it on a local dev environment uh, and I'm not worried about things that might be added to my database.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah, I saw like the conversation for I don't know weeks or months about the module and being developed, and it looked pretty exciting. I just never got to try it.
Ah, well, try it sometime. If you make it to Florida Drupal camp and have not tried it by then I'll walk you through it.
Thank you.
So I've been bragging about what I've been working on lately. There are a couple of technical issues as well. Um, two things are getting all of the migrate plugins to use attributes rather than what's the other one?
Notations.
Right, rather than annotations, which turns out to be harder than should be. But well, if you're interested, I can talk about that. But I figure most people should not be interested in it.
I mean, that's, I mean, if there's a way I could help, I guess what I would be interested to know is, like, what is the technical challenge that make it more difficult than maybe other plugins that are being converted?
Let me think a minute. What is the issue? Yeah, actually, I think it's mostly solved, and the blocking issue is RTBC, and just waiting for someone to actually merge it. Story of my life. But I think the issue is that when we're using annotations, we're just sort of parsing a PHP file and getting out the information in the comments. And that's the way what is it?
Doctrine.
Doctrine. Yes, thank you. That's the way doctrine works. But when you're using annotations, you're actually um, loading the file, letting PHP process the file. And there are some cases where the file is in a module that is not enabled, and then Drupal has not set up autoload for the file, and PHP can't get at it. It's just like there's one trait in the content translation module that is referred to by some source plugin in the block module or block content and some other, maybe the taxonomy module and maybe a third one. Um, so I think the solution is to move that trait to the migrate Drupal module, which we've done. And as I said, the issue is RTBC. So I think that's the main technical issue. Um, and there are some other questions of what should be done as part of the conversion issue and what can be left to follow-up issues. But I'm in favor of using follow-up issues. Um, there's this source property that's only used by the migrate Drupal module. I think we should deal with that in a follow-up issue.
I assume that there is no intention of changing the underlying functionality. It's just about how the data is loaded, like the plugin information is loaded, right?
That's the intention, yes. And that's why I think that questions about the source attribute should be made a follow-up issue because it's really out of scope for converting from annotations to attributes.
Mhm. And you mentioned that there are two issues, and so there is another one that's also blocking stuff at the moment.
Yeah, so I think I've described them both, but
Oh, okay.
let me just I have a bookmark for issues that I'm following. Mm.
Oh, wow, that's a lot. Oh, okay. I guess you filter by review by the community. I was
Yeah.
surprised that all your issues were already RTBC.
No, no, no. I filtered on that. Has that, oh, has it actually been merged? Batch ID. Yeah, I wonder. Not seeing it. Maybe it's been fixed in the last couple of days. So I was working on some contrib modules that I own. And here are issues. All right, let's see. What's a good keyword to search for? Can I just say migrate? Okay, so here's the main issue. And the related issue, so move source module from migrate to migrate Drupal. That's what I think should be a follow-up issue. Here's the issue for moving the trait, which I thought was RTBC, but someone seems to have declared it needs work. Ah, all right, it was RTBC. All right, so I need to update the issue summary, but okay, I asked for some additional work on it, so it's my fault that it's not RTBC. So I,
Right.
but anyway, this one is close. Um, and this is the main issue, which I guess is needs review. I have to see how it's needs review with this other one not yet resolved. But anyway, I just need a little time, and I need to nag someone to do uh the cleanup that I did. I mentioned I have some comments on the merge request, and then I need to update the issue summary, and then I need to review this. So enough about me. What do you want to brag about? What have you been working on lately?
So the migrated skip fields is one that doesn't require a lot of maintenance, but I use very, very often, very basically in every project.
This one?
And the other, yeah, and the other one is the auto increment alter. I have been making, well, I guess there was a long pause in December. Hopefully, I can resume that um, in the new year. But it started just like a drush. Well, no, not even a drush command. It started just like a script, and it has evolved to having drush commands, like and hopefully soon a UI. It's called auto underscore increment alter.
So is this another module?
Yes,
So will I find it here?
yes, I assume. Yeah, auto increment alter. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I've never done that. I always prefer to, let the Migrate API create new entities, IDs, and then I use migration lookup everywhere. But Mike Lutz always uses this technique, and I'm not going to argue with him. So, so having an easy way to do that is obviously a good thing. So maybe I should add that to my recipe.
So I guess the motivation is like at least on a couple of projects we get confirmation, double, triple confirmation from the client. Oh no, we're just going to use these test environments for testing. Okay, let's not worry about entities IDs until they decide that they spend a lot of time on their test and they want to use some of the content on the real site. So trying to reconcile databases when there is a lot of like related entities is difficult, if not impossible. So now, like very recently, actually, we just started to like default to this, like where the client asks for it or not. Like if they don't ask for it, it wouldn't hurt. But if if they at some point like backtrack and say yes, we want to reuse content, at least there is something in place that will allow us to do it.
And if you've already used this on the development site, then they can't possibly care because you've changed you've reset the next node ID for the development site. Who cares?
Yeah.
So this is just a special case of the problem. Everyone knows that clients don't actually know what they want. We have to tell them, or at least we have to anticipate.
Yes. I mean, if they did really like go at the very last, like when we are ready to launch, if they say definitely not, like we can just not run the module on production on the final environment that we will become production. But during testing, if they want to, for whatever reason, use some of that in production, now at least we have something in place. And you might be aware of the series as well.
I'm
That
aware of it, but I haven't read any of your articles, so where can I find this? Upgrades and
um,
migrations. I bet it's
yeah, usually the easiest would be to go to the blog. It's usually one of the latest articles on the blog, and then there is a link to the whole series. Yeah,
okay. So
there's
tagwinconsulting.com/blog.
yeah, there is a series overview and TOC. The
Yes.
so actually, this module, the auto increment alter, was the out. I mean, we have been doing this for a while, but when I try to, write something, I try to make it as easy as possible. So when I was writing the article about entity ID conflicts, okay, let's just write a module for this, and I created the module. Something that
So 7 plus 6 plus 9 plus 9. That's a lot of articles already. 34.
very well. I was well. The idea is to be 31 in the end.
Oh no.
Maybe we haven't
Oh no,
updated
you're
on this.
I'm
Yeah,
I can't add. It is 31.
yeah, yeah. It was intentional because of the original series. We wanted like that was our target. We weren't sure if we were going to like definitely not less, very likely a lot more. But it ended like I mean this is intentional. Like we are writing longer articles so that we can make them fit within the 31 number.
Sure, that makes sense.
Like I remember that at the beginning, each article was like 3 or 4 pages long. Now they are like 20 pages long.
Wow.
Yes, it's yeah, it's,
And so you've already got 25 of them and you're working on the last six.
yes, yes. The idea is to wrap them up very soon.
I mean, from nodes to user and taxonomy terms. I mean, also from nodes to media, right?
Not in this example. We are
Huh.
going to convert file to media and then media to nodes. But the example doesn't include direct node to media conversions. I mean, ultimately, the goal is that you will be able to do those kind of transformations yourself. That's why we are showing some examples of what you need to do if you go from one entity type to another. But like, that's another thing. Like, at some point, I need to be realistic with myself that if this is going to be done and completed, like, I need to reduce the scope of the examples and such. Like, it was like originally we wanted to cover way more topics, a lot more topics, but it would be like a never ending series. And I don't think that is good for anyone. Yeah, so I mean, I still think we're providing a lot of value, but like it is also like intentionally scoped to be something and not everything for everyone.
Sure.
But I guess what we want to teach is like, yeah, you can follow these examples, but ultimately the knowledge that you acquire should help you, write your custom migrations, and that's the primary goal.
Yeah, when I was talking about my recipes, the one that I've made and the one that I'm planning to make, I mentioned that the ambitious site builder can't really do anything ambitious with migrations because they don't have a way in the admin UI to edit migrations. And I know that the migrate feeds or feeds migrate module, whichever it was, um, had a goal of doing that, but it never really got off the ground. And it's a real shame. I knew when Drupal 8 was coming out, so I knew 10 years ago that the feeds module should make itself a front end to the migrate API. But unfortunately, I never talked to the owners of the feeds module back then, and I don't know if they would have listened to me back then. So it's a real shame that that never happened. Um, and we now have the ECA module that a lot of people are excited about. I've never actually used it myself, but it's obviously got a lot of traction. And if we could have that sort of interface for for editing migrations, then we would really be hitting the target audience of the ambitious site builder. We'd have a user interface where you could actually do complicated things with your migrations.
I remember the first migration trainings that I gave were um, they started using like it was depending on the length, it was only UI or UI plus CLI. But it always started with UI, and we were using Migrate Plus, Migrate Tools for the UI. And I know you're not supposed to do it, but like we were writing the YAML files and then importing like single configuration entities
Yep.
and run it. It works. Let's go to the next one. It works. And even today, like I find it empowering that maybe you can do it. Like the fact that you can do it, the fact that you don't need to create a module to write PHP to run CLI commands in order to execute a migration, even if it is not the recommended way, if that is good enough to, for one, teach you how to do it, but two, give you the confidence to do it, I guess that is already a big win.
Yeah, I've done it that way, but no, it's not the recommended way.
Yeah, yeah, it's in the series. In this one, I share a couple of what I would call anti patterns, mostly like out of experience and just for people to be aware of things. But that doesn't mean that I recommend doing them.
So I just installed this Drupal site just for the sake of recording, if anyone bothers to listen to it other than you and me. Here we go. Config synchronization, import single item. Oh, I suppose it would help.
If you
Um,
enable the module,
yes. Uh,
yeah, you will
I,
need Migrate Plus at least.
yes. Ah, I seem to have that in my code base. So I enabled that behind the scenes and here, migration. Yes. I think I've done that once or twice. And it's it's nice to have your migrations under version control.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So so this is not exactly the recommended way to do it, but yes, it works.
Shall, sh
I have
shall we
done it.
shall we say for the recording that you should never do this in production?
Absolutely.
Right. Yep. That's cool. Do you happen to have Migrate Sandbox here too?
Uh, I don't think I do, but I can get it pretty quickly. Oh, I need a new GitHub token.
Don't worry. I shall I should try it myself too. I've just been postponing it for the longest time.
Yeah. So let's see. Any all right, we have 7 minutes left in the scheduled meeting. Do you want to talk about what you plan to do in the next 3 months or what you would like us migrate maintainers to get done in the next 3 months?
I want to finish the series, the upgrade series. Hopefully that will be done this month,
Awesome.
uh, or by February at the latest. So between writing and polishing, there is some like time in between. But my plan is to finish writing it at the end of the month at the latest, and then publish as the schedule allows. Um, the other day I brought up what might be a documentation issue, that some source plugins do not report all the columns that are fetched from from their source. I should do a better job at actually creating the issue. Like I talk about them in Slack, but I not often create the issue on Drupal.org. So maybe that's something that I can do in terms of things getting fixed. Uh, at this point, actually, I saw a recent someone pointed out RTVC an issue about um, fil like an extra filter condition on views plugins that it's I don't remember it. It's complicated. The long title kind of cumbersome issue. I have seen that many times, and I often have to apply a patch for it. So, but I don't remember the issue at the top of my head. This one would be a nice one. The entity fields one.
Right. So this is for destinations. Um,
Yes.
and this one is RTPC. and has been for a while. Um, but you were talking about sources, not.
Yes. So the context where I found the issue was I was well again tying back to the series when I was writing the series about uh, user migrations and I was trying to determine a suitable property to use as high watermark. I said, well, I could use the updated timestamp, and I look at the like migrate fields thrush command to see what is reported, and it wasn't there. And I look at the database table in Drupal 7, and there is a column for that. So I look the code, and it is indeed missing. But then I didn't know if it was intentional that people are not supposed to use that column because it is not like it is not only that it is missing from the fields in the source plugin, but it is also missing from the mapping in the user migration. So the updated time is not mapping the user migration. So I didn't know if that was intentional or not. And after looking at that one, I saw a couple of other examples of like a source plugin that doesn't report all the columns that are being fetched. And then like, like one thing takes you to another. Then I said like I know this issue that you have in the screen at the moment uses some like APIs to determine the fields for the destination bundle. So I said, why don't we try to do the same? Like most of, at least in core, the derived content type migrations specify a node type. So if we have that information available, we could also try to fetch the fields and report them back. So, but I guess those are issues that I need to create, at least to get the discussions going.
Yeah, it sounds like it's sort of the same level of complexity as this one, which has unfortunately been open for 9 years.
Well, maybe taking inspiration from this one, the other one, maybe a lot less.
I hope so.
I mean, I guess this is
That's,
the one that would have done already bulk of the work. Like it will be replicating this. I mean, I'm not want to minimize the effort, but like if this is already implemented, I assume you could reuse a good amount of things from this one into the other one.
or at least figure out what the problems were. Why has this taken so long? And hopefully use those answers. Uh,
Well, I guess we're almost at time, but is there anything that you would like to fix or get fixed?
oh, there's so many things I'd like to get fixed. So there's this issue that I haven't looked at in about a year and a half in the Migrate Plus module. So it has some sort of custom written JSON parsing, and by God, it should be using a PHP library for parsing JSON. And there's one that uses something a lot like XPath. XPath, by the way, is incredible. So if you could use XPath type parsing on JSON files, then it would be really useful in Migrate. So there's an issue to add that, and again, it's been open for a long time. And I haven't actually had a project where I'm using JSON sources, so I don't really have the motivation to get it fixed, but it should be fixed. So there's that one. There's JSON API source, and I know that Mike Calabrese wrote a contrib module for doing that. We were thinking of doing it in core years ago, and it never happened. So now that we have something in contrib, something to at least start with, I should look at that and see how usable it is. Maybe add some tests for it if it needs it. But at the very least, what a JSON API source should do is give you some easy way to handle the pagination.
Hmm.
JSON API, the API specifies next and previous links. So the source plugin should be able to handle that for you. Um, and then this converting plugins to use attributes, we need to get that done. And then we need to get ready for Drupal 12 when we're going to be removing migrate Drupal. Um, and of course, the way it's structured is that every single module um, has source plugins and destination plugins tied to migrate Drupal. And we have to figure out how we're going to remove all of those. Um, so yeah, there's plenty of things on my to-do list. I don't know how much of it I can get done in the next 3 months.
All right. We shall see.
Yep. Well, thanks for joining the Zoom meeting and thanks for all the work you do with documentation and teaching and promoting Drupal and answering questions in Slack. It's a big help.
Yeah, and thanks for maintaining the API itself.
Well, I can't take credit for all of that,
Yeah,
but I do try to help keep it running smoothly and make little improvements here and there.
cool.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.